The lead investigator at Skinwalker Ranch has walked away. What was captured on the cameras was not merely unexplained. It was not random. It was not passive. Whatever appeared in that footage demonstrated awareness. It knew the team was present. It knew where every camera was positioned, and it reacted accordingly. That single fact changes everything. Dr. Travis S. Taylor, one of the most credentialed scientists ever associated with the ranch, has reportedly stepped away from the investigation after reviewing footage so disturbing, so fundamentally incompatible with conventional explanation, that he chose to disengage entirely. And the response from ranch owner Brandon Fugal has raised more questions than it has answered. To understand the significance of this moment, it's essential to understand who Travis Taylor is. Dr. Taylor is not a fringe theorist. He is not a paranormal enthusiast. He is a career scientist and engineer whose resume places him firmly within the highest tiers of American scientific and defense research. He holds multiple advanced degrees from major institutions, including a PhD in optical science and engineering and a separate PhD in aerospace systems engineering. He also earned a master's degree in physics, a master's degree in astronomy, and a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. That alone would place him among an elite few, but his professional experience extends far beyond academia. Taylor has spent decades working with the United States Department of Defense on classified programs whose details remain inaccessible to the public. He has consulted for NASA on advanced aerospace initiatives, contributed to research involving next-generation propulsion systems, directed energy concepts, and surveillance technologies, and operated under security clearances granting access to some of the most sensitive information in the federal system. He has authored more than 24 peer-reviewed scientific papers and produced technical documentation for government agencies that may never be declassified. To the public, he is known through credible science-focused programs such as The Universe and Rocket City Rednecks, where he translated complex physics and engineering principles into accessible explanations without sacrificing rigor. Within defense and scientific circles, his reputation is unambiguous, disciplined, skeptical, and methodical. When Travis Taylor joined the Skinwalker Ranch investigation in 2020, it marked a turning point. His involvement immediately elevated the project from the margins of paranormal curiosity into something approaching a controlled scientific inquiry. His presence signaled that the ranch was no longer being treated as folklore, but as a data-driven problem set, one worthy of serious instrumentation and serious analysis. Taylor introduced equipment rarely seen outside government or aerospace testing environments. Advanced spectrum analyzers capable of monitoring across wide frequency bands, radiation detection systems calibrated for both ionizing and non-ionizing exposure, high-resolution electromagnetic field sensors, LiDAR mapping arrays, experimental monitoring platforms not commercially available, designed to correlate environmental data in real time. More importantly, he brought process, hypothesis control, redundancy, cross-verification, a refusal to label anything anomalous unless it survived repeated scrutiny, which is why his departure matters. According to multiple sources close to the investigation, speaking only on condition of anonymity, the incident that triggered his exit occurred during a late-night surveillance operation in the East Field area of Skinwalker Ranch. For longtime followers of the investigation, the East Field requires little introduction. It has consistently produced some of the ranch's most persistent anomalies: unexplained light phenomena, electromagnetic interference, GPS degradation, sensor failures, and transient thermal signatures that appear without an identifiable source. Unlike other areas of the property, activity in the East Field often correlates with observation itself, as though attention acts as a catalyst. On this particular night, the area was under multi-angle surveillance, fixed cameras, mobile platforms, redundant recording systems. The setup was designed specifically to rule out blind spots and eliminate the possibility of equipment error or selective capture. What appeared did not behave like a random atmospheric event or a malfunctioning sensor artifact. The footage reportedly shows a presence that navigated the field with apparent awareness of the surveillance grid, avoiding certain angles, lingering just outside optimal coverage zones, and repositioning in ways that suggested spatial understanding. Most unsettling, according to those who reviewed the footage, was the implication that the phenomenon was not reacting to the environment, but to the observers. It wasn't being recorded, it was engaging. Within hours of the footage being reviewed, internal discussions escalated beyond routine analysis. Normal investigative protocols were suspended. Access to certain data streams was restricted, and shortly thereafter, Travis Taylor made the decision to step away. Publicly, no formal explanation has been given. Privately, the message appears far more sobering. The investigation may have crossed a line from observation into interaction, and that raises a question no one associated with Skinwalker Ranch seems willing to answer directly. If what's there knows we're watching, what happens when it decides to watch back? This area is not just another section of the ranch. It is the location where the investigation team has documented some of the most intense, consistent, and repeatable, unexplained activity on the entire property. Over multiple seasons, the East Field has produced verified UAP sightings captured simultaneously by independent camera systems. It has generated electromagnetic disturbances strong enough to cause sudden total equipment failures. Livestock behavior in this zone has been particularly telling. Cattle refusing to enter specific patches of ground even when feed is placed there, showing visible agitation and stress responses. Human investigators have also reported physiological effects after extended exposure, including sudden nausea, disorientation, pressure behind the eyes, and temporary visual disturbances that could not be medically explained at the time. Because of this history, the team authorized what they referred to internally as a maximum coverage surveillance operation. The objective was simple in concept but extreme in execution: eliminate ambiguity. Every available sensor, every imaging system, every detection platform would be focused on the East Field simultaneously. If something occurred, it would be recorded across multiple modalities, from multiple angles, with all systems synchronized to a shared atomic clock down to the millisecond. The deployment was extensive. 6 infrared camera arrays were positioned in a wide perimeter to provide overlapping fields of view. Long-range thermal imaging systems were calibrated to detect heat signatures at distances exceeding 1 mile. Electromagnetic spectrum analyzers monitored activity across a broad bandwidth, from extremely low-frequency radio waves through microwave and into high-energy gamma ranges. Radiation detectors, capable of registering even minor particle emissions, were installed with automatic shutdown protocols to protect the sensors. Motion detection included both passive infrared and active microwave systems. High-definition night vision cameras recorded continuously in 4K resolution. All data streams were transmitted live to the command center. The operation began at sunset, approximately 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Dr. Travis Taylor was stationed in the command center roughly 300 yards from the East Field, monitoring the feeds across multiple displays. Security personnel maintained fixed positions along the perimeter. Radio communication was open and constant. The expectation was not immediate results, but patient observation. For hours, nothing happened. Baseline readings remained stable. The electromagnetic environment was quiet. No thermal anomalies appeared. Radiation levels stayed within normal background thresholds. Motion detections were limited to occasional wildlife passing through the outer zones. By the ranch's standards, it was unusually calm. Tension gave way to guarded humor. Some team members reportedly joked that whatever normally occupied the area had chosen to stay away that night. Then, at exactly 2:47 a.m., the entire system reacted at once. Every sensor in the surveillance array registered an anomaly at the same moment, synchronized down to the millisecond. The electromagnetic field monitors spiked to levels that, under normal circumstances, would require a substantial power source in close proximity. The readings were consistent with something on the scale of a major electrical substation or a high-powered military-grade transmission system operating at full output. There was nothing there. No infrastructure, no vehicles, no known equipment capable of producing that signature. Radiation detectors surged so far beyond their safe operating thresholds that they triggered automatic shutdowns to prevent permanent damage. Thermal imaging systems detected a large coherent heat signature that did not match any known animal, vehicle, or atmospheric phenomenon previously cataloged by the team. And then there was the visual data. According to a source close to the investigation, who spoke only on condition of anonymity due to confidentiality restrictions. The night vision footage shows a structured object appearing abruptly within the surveillance zone, not emerging from the horizon, not descending. It appeared fully formed, solid, three-dimensional, and sharply defined. The object remained completely stationary, hovering in place for approximately 30 seconds. There were no visible control surfaces, no exhaust, no propulsion system, no means of lift or suspension. It did not wobble, drift, or rotate. Then, just as abruptly, it ceased to be there. Not by accelerating away, not by fading into the distance. It dematerialized, collapsing or vanishing in a manner that, according to those who reviewed the footage, violates multiple principles of physics as they are currently understood. Importantly, the object was not blurry, it was not distorted, it was not a sensor artifact, it was clear, and that clarity is precisely what made the footage so disturbing. This was not a distant point of light that could be casually dismissed as an aircraft, a satellite, or atmospheric interference. According to those who reviewed the footage, the object was clearly resolved across multiple camera systems at the same time. It possessed defined edges, structural geometry, and a surface that appeared metallic or highly reflective, responding to ambient light in a way consistent with a solid manufactured form. But the object itself was not what ultimately unsettled Dr. Taylor. What followed was far more disturbing. Seconds after the object vanished from view, the cameras recorded something else occupying the exact position where it had been hovering. There was no approach, no movement into frame, no triggering of motion sensors. The figure did not emerge from shadow or enter from the perimeter. It was simply there. Witnesses described it as appearing instantaneously, as if it had been deposited or left behind when the object disappeared. The figure stood motionless for an estimated 5 to 7 seconds. No visible shifting of weight, no adjustment of posture, just stillness. Then it moved. Slowly and deliberately, the figure turned its head toward the camera array. Not randomly, not scanning the environment, directly toward the cameras. Those who have seen the footage describe this moment as profoundly unsettling, not because of any overt threat, but because of the unmistakable impression of awareness. The figure appeared to know exactly where the cameras were positioned. It did not search for them, it acknowledged them. That moment, according to multiple sources, was when the room went silent. Descriptions of the figure's physical proportions only deepened the unease. It was unnaturally tall, estimated between 7 and 8 feet in height. The torso was narrow to the point of appearing skeletal. The limbs, particularly the arms, did not articulate in a way consistent with human anatomy. Observers noted something fundamentally wrong with the joints, with how they bent or failed to bend, triggering an immediate instinctive sense that what they were seeing was not human. Then the figure began to move. It did not walk. There was no visible stride, no alternating leg motion, no shifting of mass from foot to foot. Instead, the figure advanced toward the camera array with an unnaturally smooth fluid motion, described as gliding or floating just above the ground. It covered distance without the mechanical markers of bipedal locomotion, without friction, without hesitation. At that moment, Dr. Taylor was monitoring the feeds live from the command center approximately 300 yards away. He reacted instantly. He grabbed the radio and issued a direct, urgent transmission to the security personnel stationed near the east field. Evacuate immediately. Leave the area. Get away from that location now. Before any acknowledgement could be transmitted back, before anyone could respond, something unprecedented occurred. Every camera went dark, not in sequence, not with interference, not with static or signal degradation. Every system, infrared, thermal, night vision, cut to black at the exact same moment. Total loss. Perfect synchronization. As if a single switch had been thrown across the entire array. There was no recorded failure cascade, no power fluctuation, no diagnostic warnings, just black. When the team returned to the east field the following morning at first light, they found physical evidence that something out of the ordinary had taken place. At the exact location where the figure had been observed standing, investigators documented a scorched circular pattern in the ground approximately 8 feet in diameter. The grass within the circle was completely burned away, reduced to ash and fine residue, already dispersing in the morning wind. The burn pattern was sharply defined, with no gradual fade or irregular spread. inconsistent with natural fire behavior. No ignition source was identified, no lightning strike, no buried infrastructure, no chemical residue associated with known accelerants. Just a precise circular absence where living ground cover had been only hours earlier. According to sources familiar with the internal response, this was the moment when the investigation shifted from curiosity to concern, and for Dr. Travis Taylor, it appears to have been the point where observation became something else entirely. The disturbance was not limited to surface vegetation. The soil itself showed clear signs of extreme thermal exposure. Investigators noted that its texture had changed, compacted and vitrified in places, and its coloration was visibly darker than the surrounding earth, as though it had been flash-heated. Most unsettling was the persistence of that heat. Measurements taken 12 hours after the incident confirmed that the temperature within the scorched circle remained nearly 15 degrees Fahrenheit higher than the adjacent ground. That is not residual warmth, that is sustained energy. Whatever occurred at that location released, or generated, enough power to alter the physical properties of the soil itself. The anomalies did not end there. Electromagnetic readings at the exact center of the circle remained unstable for 3 full days following the event. Instruments recorded erratic fluctuations and nonlinear patterns that defied known electromagnetic behavior. There was no identifiable power source, no buried infrastructure, no equipment capable of influencing the field. Yet the disturbances persisted, localized and repeatable. Then came the detail that reportedly unsettled Travis Taylor more than anything else. When he returned to the footage for post-event analysis, reviewing it frame by frame rather than in real time, he noticed something that had not been apparent during live monitoring. In the final moments before the cameras went dark, in the last frames ever recorded, the figure appeared to be staring directly into the camera lens, not in a general direction, at the lens itself, and within what observers cautiously described as the reflection of its eyes, assuming they could be defined as eyes in any conventional biological sense. There appeared to be patterns, not noise, not compression artifacts, not lens flare, distinct geometric symbols, precise and structured, visible only when the footage was slowed and enhanced. They were not random. They appeared deliberate. Travis reportedly isolated these frames and began an exhaustive analysis. Over the next 72 hours, he remained almost continuously in the analysis room, sleeping little, eating almost nothing, replaying the footage hundreds of times. He extracted stills, enhanced contrast, applied filtering techniques, and ran the imagery through every database available to him. And those databases were not limited to public resources. Given his security clearances, Taylor had access to classified repositories, linguistic, cryptographic, symbolic, and mathematical, that most researchers never encounter. He consulted colleagues across disciplines: linguistics, cryptography, theoretical mathematics, symbolic systems analysis. He reached out to experts in ancient languages, archaeological iconography, and esoteric symbolic frameworks. Nothing matched. There was no known language, no recognized mathematical system, no symbolic structure, ancient or modern, that provided even a starting point for interpretation. According to multiple sources who spoke with Taylor during this period, this was the moment when something fundamental shifted. Until then, despite years of anomalies, equipment failures, physiological effects, and unexplained aerial phenomena, Travis had maintained a core belief in eventual resolution. His position had always been that with sufficient data, sufficient rigor, and sufficient time, rational explanations would emerge, even if they challenged current models. This incident broke that confidence. The object, the figure, the physiological and environmental effects, and most of all the symbols, together they formed a pattern that no longer fit within any known scientific framework. Not classical physics, not advanced aerospace theory, not speculative models at the edge of contemporary science. What he was confronting did not behave like an unknown natural phenomenon or undiscovered technology. It behaved as though it possessed awareness, intention, purpose, and that, according to those closest to him, was the point at which Skinwalker Ranch ceased to be a problem to be solved and became something else entirely. What disturbed Travis Taylor most was not simply that something unexplained had appeared. It was that whatever manifested in the east field appeared to be interacting deliberately with the investigation itself. One source close to Taylor recalls him articulating the problem this way. In science, there's supposed to be a clean separation between the observer and the observed. You measure something, you analyze it, but you remain outside of it. The moment that relationship reverses, when the thing you're studying begins responding to you, that's no longer a phenomenon. That's an intelligence. And that changes everything. To Taylor, the east field footage crossed that line. The object appeared precisely where the most sensitive instruments were concentrated, as if it understood the surveillance grid. The humanoid figure manifested in the same location, suggesting continuity rather than coincidence. Its movement, direct and purposeful toward the camera ray, showed no hesitation, no confusion, no exploratory behavior, and the symbols reflected in its eyes did not appear decorative or incidental. They appeared intentional, as though meant to be seen. To Travis, the implication was deeply unsettling. This was not an accidental encounter. It felt like a response. Privately, Taylor expressed concern that the investigation itself might be acting as a trigger, that the escalation in activity wasn't random or cyclical, but reactive. Every new sensor deployed, every experiment conducted, every intrusion into the subsurface or electromagnetic environment might be provoking something rather than revealing it. Within the team, a theory began to take shape, one that Travis reportedly came to take seriously. Skinwalker Ranch, in this view, was not simply a place where strange things happened. It was a place where something had been contained, whether that meant a dimensional boundary, an ancient structure, or an unknown system beyond current human comprehension. The implication was the same. The land was not passive. It was controlled, and investigation itself might be weakening whatever barriers had been established long ago. As Travis reportedly asked colleagues, what if we're not discovering something dormant? What if we're waking something up? That question marked a profound shift in his thinking. For years, Taylor had approached the ranch with scientific optimism. He believed anomalies could eventually be categorized, modeled, and understood, even if they required new physics or unconventional frameworks. But the Eastfield incident resisted that approach entirely. It demonstrated awareness, strategy, and what appeared to be intentional communication. At that point, according to those close to him, the risk was no longer confined to equipment damage or temporary physiological effects. The concern became existential. What happens if continued investigation accelerates something that cannot be controlled or reversed? When news of Travis Taylor's departure began circulating internally, attention immediately turned to Brandon Fugal. As the owner of Skinwalker Ranch and the primary financier of its investigation, Fugal had invested millions into turning the property into a controlled research environment. Losing his lead investigator, especially one with Taylor's credentials, was not a minor setback. Fugal released a brief official statement acknowledging Taylor's departure, thanking him for his contributions, and emphasizing that research at the ranch would continue. But notably absent were details, no denial, no alternative explanation, no attempt to downplay the seriousness of the event. That silence spoke volumes. This is not just another Skinwalker Ranch story. It is not a recycled account of lights in the sky or malfunctioning equipment. What was captured that night, and what Travis Taylor concluded after analyzing it, forced a reevaluation of the entire premise of the investigation. Because when a phenomenon demonstrates awareness of observation, understands methodology, and appears to respond with intention, the rules change. And that is why Travis Taylor walking away matters. Not because he was frightened, but because, by his own reasoning, the investigation may have stopped being safe to continue.